What up, YouTube Digital? This is I'm gonna put this as a response to Lambdog's video on his upgrade. Um, in the career world, and I like to congratulate him. Now, there's a theory that's out there, and it's kind of controversial. Some people want to overanalyze it, and when you overanalyze it, you're just an asshole. It's Gladwell's theory at 10,000 hours. And I want to kind of give a quick, well, semi-quick rundown of my 10,000 hours. Now, his theory was, in the very short breakdown of it, 10,000 hours, you can master it. Is that true? Yes and no. You can master whether or not you really want to do it. You can master enough to do it. But are you a true master? No. No one is. No one will ever will be. There's too many deals in everything involved. You look at the markets. You know, when you get people that like Robbie G and stuff, they specialize in certain parts of the markets because Jesus Christ, there's too much. Me with insurance, I have to dump stupid shit because I have to remember important shit. So, like in my first video, the whole health insurance, the EPO, the POS, you know, that shit. You know, you have to kind of like throw that shit in the back and get rid of it because it's not important. And that's another thing that 10,000 hours should help you learn is what is important and what's not important. The other part of that 10,000 is building relationships and all that shit. Now, the start of my 10,000 hours started with fast food. And people knock fast food. And I'm going to sit there and say they can kiss my ass. Because really, that's a fucking introduction to corporate. There is no difference on how how that type of shit worked. That when I worked at Wendy's and Taco Bell for a couple weeks and Burger King, than where I am now. Same bullshit, same everything else. And it's a good introduction. So I had a, let's see, about 5-year run in there. Got fired multiple times. I got fired from Wendy's. They built one in the city I was in. It was the first one there. I was the first person hired. They put me in a goddamn old CYA van. If you don't know what CYA is, it's California Youth Authority. Basically, where they put people where they put kids where they should be in an adult jail, but they can't because they're that bad. I got a funny story about that too. And they took us down to Sacramento, and I think I was on the one on Watt, or was it Del Paso? I don't know. It was in a fucking ghetto, and the goddamn motherfucker who trained me on the grill. I was supposed to be like the head grill guy in this Wendy's. So I was the first one hired for that place. I was also the first grill guy, and I was going to be the one that was going to be trained out of town, and then I'm going to train the people there. Why didn't they make me shift manager? I don't know. But anywho, the motherfucker who went to train me, he showed me about like 5 things. Flip to the right, 4-corner press, scrape the grease. Okay, and then he said, oh yeah, I'll be right back. An hour and a half later, and we got fucking slammed. And I was on a grill that just did the drive-through window. And I'm like fucking laying meat like crazy, and flipping and all this shit, and I'm going fucking nuts, and I come back and I'm gonna fuck this person up. And he comes back and he's just fucking reeking of weed, and I'm like, you motherfucker. You fucking left me here and you went out to go score a fucking bag of weed? And he just sat there for a second because he was kind of a big black guy. And I'm like, the fuck are you doing? You goddamn know it's fucking 12 o'clock. And he just looked at me because, I was just tired and fucking yelling. I'm like, give me a goddamn joint. And I went outside and smoked it. With him. Told the manager to deal with it. The manager saw how the manager of that store saw how hard I worked, so she was like cool with like watching things for a while. Plus, the single law, well, except for the joint part. But oh shit. So the first day that we opened the new store, we had a line of about 3/4 of a mile backlog in a drive-thru. I was on the grill for about 6.5 hours straight. And it got to a point about hour number 2.5, and I'm like, I was lighting up a fucking cigarette in the break room, which was like 5 feet away. But by the time I go back, the goddamn thing was gone. And I'm like, what the motherfucker? People were stealing them. So I just started smoking at the grill. And back then in California, you could do that. Well, you couldn't do that, but you could smoke in the restaurants. And manager came up, and I'm like, well, are you going to give me a fucking break? Okay. Shut up. So, yeah, there's a couple times I got fired, but the district manager who originally hired me kept hiring me back. One of the times I got fired for sexual harassment of this big, nasty, 400-pound, ugly, red-headed fuck. And the screwed up thing is she was dating kind of a guy who was a little slow, but, I was cool with him. I was friends with him. I would, even if she was hot as hell, I wouldn't fuck him over like that. And I was walking by, it was just after my grandpa died, and it kind of worked out, because I got fired, I was able to spend a couple weeks with my grandpa before he died, and I was walking by, and I hear somebody yelling, John, and I looked over, and I saw her, and I was at the gas station, and I went over there, and she's like, where the fuck have you been? I'm like, I got fired for sexual harassment. And she goes, oh. Okay. Want a job? Alright, cool. So, pretty much she told them they couldn't fire me anymore unless she said okay. And then she got fired, then I got fired. But anyhow. And, you know, you just gotta... That kind of taught me about the corporate thing is that every time I got fired, it wasn't because I didn't sexually harass that redhead. I didn't fucking want... I wouldn't fuck her. Ugh. I'm getting sick thinking about it. But it wasn't about that. It had nothing to do with that. It was a payback for something that I wouldn't do for another manager. They wanted me to rat someone out, and I didn't want to do it. And so they did that. And that kind of gave me a lot of upside of how people act. Then later on, you know, I worked at the .com deal, and it kind of was the same. And when I started working at the janitorial thing for a friend, we had another guy that was also working there, and he was pissed because he didn't realize at first that me and the owner knew each other since we were like 6. I mean, we were like OG. And he didn't meet him until like fucking 20. And so he made everything a competition. It's like, what the fuck, man? Calm down. And he just was a fucking... He was a lazy prick. And I knew he's such a fucking jackass that he was always mooching off his millionaire grandma. And his grandma passed away, and God, you know, I kind of feel good she did because those guys would leave her alone. But the whole family, fucking sick. And when she died, I knew he was going to inherit some money. He made it out to be more than it was, but he spent it on a blower and a couple other things, and it was all gone. But I knew he would quit. And I knew that we got in a fight, and we're at the restaurant that we cleaned, and we got in an argument, and I just looked at him. It's like, you know, not to fuck with me. So, you know what? Just fuck you. I'm gone. So I started walking towards the door. That motherfucker passed me up, threw the keys at me, got in his car, backed up, in his piece of shit. He put a goddamn blower on a fucking Kragen rebuilt motor in a 77 fucking stupid ass Camaro. It was so fucking ugly as hell. And he fucking backed up, did a J-turn and took off, and I'm like, you dumb son of a bitch, you fell right for my fucking deal. Now I don't have to work with you, you stupid fuck. And then after that, you know, at first I kind of took it as, you know, just it was a job. But as things went on, and I got more responsibilities because my friend was getting more money in his pocket, and he was doing less and less work, it started to become apparent that, you know, you hear all this shit in high school, you're not good enough for this, you're not good enough for that, and all this other crap. And then I'm realizing that I'm now, I'm dealing with the corporations. I'm dealing with their corporate offices. My next tell is where everybody calls at any time. And then over the years, hiring, firing, all this other shit, it came a moment where my boss went through a divorce. Now, I will say that, like me, he had a fucked up childhood. His mom's nuts. My mom's nuts. He needs help. And I hope one of these days he'll finally wake up and go get it. But he had a sister die who he's a year older than me, and my sister's a year older than his sister. And his sister died in her sleep from infection around the heart. Sad fucking deal. Could not even fucking believe it. But after that, he ended up, not that much longer, about a couple years, 2 years later, he ended up going through a divorce. His wife was fucking hella cool, and she was smart as fuck. She got her MBA, and when she got it, she was only like 23, 24, or something like that. She went through like 6 years of college in like 4. And she just got tired of it. Tired of he became so secluded. He just fucking lived in his garage, working on his vehicles, which meant that I had to take on even more shit. So I was doing it because what the fuck. And that's about the time I met Debbie, my wife. And then something happened. For some fucking reason, my friend decided to go take a trip to Florida to mingle with an old flame that I knew she wasn't gonna fucking whatever. But he fucking went over there anyways. And right about that time, I was doing bids and shit. And I was basically doing everything except for I was printing invoices, dealing with corporations, everything except for printing the paychecks. I was even depositing the money. And I was working 6 days a week. There was a year that I worked 7 days a week. I worked a year pretty much straight. He goes out of town, and just before he goes, we get a call from a place that's owned by an ex-NFL player. And he's blowing it off, and it's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big thing not to blow off. And he was in such a fucking deal, he's like, well, if you want to go try, go try. Alright. So I went in there, and at first they just wanted us to clean 2 sets of bathrooms 3 times a week, 4 times a week, something like that. It would have been technically probably about a $600 to $800 a month job. And I wrote up a quote, $3,200 a month. And when I walked in there, and I'm in there with him and then his maintenance guy who was only like fucking 18 or whatever. He didn't know anything. And I knew what was going on to begin with. I knew he wanted us in there so that kid could watch what we do so he can go in-house later on. I knew that's why I went way high. But apparently I know what other people bidded, and I was double all of them. And I slapped on my business card, and on the back I just put 24/7. And it had, you know, my Nextel and my actual Direct Connect. And bam, got it. Now I walked out of there and I just laughed. And I remember calling Debbie and telling her I got it. And I used her credit card and ordered pizza for the guys, and we went in there that night and busted our asses and got it done. And we kept that account until one stupid employee my friend hired said something very stupid in there, and we lost the account. Totally unprofessional. The guy was supposedly a business guy and everything else, and the guy fucking said something very stupid. And at that point I was pissed. I was pissed that not only did I nail that account for so much more than I should have, and I would have fixed it because they were only having us do one part. The plan was we were going to go to bid for the rest of it, and then I would have adjusted it and made it more realistic at that point. I would have probably done the rest of it for the same price. But that guy fucked it all up. And at that point I was like, you know what, fuck this shit. I'm done. I'm done. It was right after the accident and all this other bullshit. And my boss, we had that account for like 7 months. He never once gave me a commission, a kickback, a fucking anything. And I was basically giving him $2,500 a month for fucking nothing. And I bit my tongue. And I said, I after my back and all the problems started right immediately, and everything else, I quit. Now my brother was working with us, and I told him, I said, you can do whatever you do, you know. I'm doing this. I don't expect you to quit. You can stay. I have no problem with that. I gotta go. My back ain't doing this, and I'm being fucked. My brother stayed a little bit and then he quit, which is fine. I don't give a shit. And that business folded a month and a half later. Every account, after I left, every account quit. And right after I left there, I started working at 7-Eleven. And when I heard every account quit, that right there told me, fuck you. That was my goddamn business. That was my shit. I did all that. Ye might have got the first account, but I don't give a flying fuck about the first account. I got the money makers. I made the money makers fucking happy. We were pulling in 20 G's a month. And that's my fucking doing. Motherfucker. And then he wanted to get all pissed off about it. And, you know, he was pissed off that he had to go to work and everything else, and he there was a point in time he was fucking pounding on my door and shit, and I'm like, oh my god, you stupid fuck, you know better. You know better not to do this with me. And he was so fucking out of it that he couldn't even fucking see how bad he fucked everything up. And at that point, I was using 7-Eleven basically just to reorganize and go. And when I heard the insurance company was hiring, I was ready to fill out a deal. But then, right then, we found out the job my wife was working for, which was the old home base, was closing. So I told her to go fill out a deal. And then, sometimes companies are a little iffy. So, with wives and husbands working and all that shit. So, I'll go ahead and stop this here, and I'll do another part 2. Peace.